Members of the U.S. Disaster Assistance Response Team now in Turkey to lead the U.S. government's humanitarian response to Monday's devastating earthquake. The team, 159 strong, with 12 rescue dogs and 170,000 pounds of specialized equipment, includes urban search and rescue teams from the Fairfax, Virginia, and Los Angeles County fire departments.
Rescue crews now racing against the clock as freezing temperatures, snowfall, and a lack of water, electricity, and communication supplies are hampering the search for survivors. All this as the death toll climbs past 21,000. Turkey's president declaring the quake the disaster of the century.
With more on the recovery efforts, we are joined by Carrie Murray, president of the Santa Barbara-based international disaster relief organization, Shelter Box USA. Carrie, thank you so much for being with us, and thank you for all the work that you're doing right now. Let's get to what is actually happening right now on the ground. What is your organization doing, and what are your workers seeing there in Turkey and Syria?
Well, Shelter Box is a global humanitarian relief organization. We focus on the provision of emergency shelter and essential supplies when you've lost everything in a disaster such as this earthquake. So Shelter Box immediately deployed our emergency response team. They are on the ground in Turkey, and they are doing a rapid needs assessment to determine just caseload, what people actually need for the provision of shelter. Basic things were in the winter, so things like blankets, solar lanterns, it could be clothing, heaters. So they are doing this needs assessment, and they will begin mobilizing and mounting what we anticipate to be a very large response.
And this isn't the first time you guys have done this. You've been doing this for years all around the world. We've got some video of some of your past rescue efforts. How does what's happening right now in Turkey and Syria compare with what you've seen in other places being described as the disaster of the century?
Well, we have to remember that Syria right now is in a crisis within a crisis. So over the last 11 years, we have been working in Syria to bring emergency shelter to over 400,000 people that have been displaced by the civil war. So they are already extraordinarily vulnerable. Many of them have been impacted by this earthquake. But versus an earthquake, say the 2010 earthquake in Haiti, that killed 220,000 people and displaced 1.5 million people in an instant. So what we know now is over 21,000. That number will rise, and we believe hundreds of thousands of people have been displaced in these earthquakes in Turkey as well as in northern Syria.
It is almost unfathomable to think that that many people lost their lives in that moment. And as you say, it's just going to rise and rise. I know people want to help. We feel helpless. We're on the other side of the world right now. Tell us how we can help with your organization.
Well, Shelter has launched an emergency appeal. We do need funding for all of our critical work, including this work that we'll be doing in Turkey, Syria after the assessments. But we're also responding right now in Ukraine. We're working in Pakistan. We're working across the Lake Chad Basin of Africa. So we rely on private charitable support to do any of this work. And the scale of our response is really commensurate with the private charitable donations that we receive. So at shelterboxusa.org, people can look and find out ways to get involved or even make a donation.
Okay, well, that bears repeating, so we will do that. If you want to help, you can go to shelterboxusa.org and make your donation there for Shelter Box. Carrie Murray, thank you so much, president of this organization. Thank you for all the important work that you're doing.
Thanks for having me.